Look, if you've ever felt completely and utterly exhausted from dealing with a partner, a friend, or maybe a family member who constantly deflects blame, you are absolutely in the right place today. We're going to dive deep into the source material to decode the hidden psychology behind why certain people actively resist taking responsibility for their actions. And, more importantly, we're going to break down the mechanics of how you can firmly reclaim your boundaries.
So we have to start right here by asking the single most frustrating question you've probably asked yourself 100 times. Why won't they just apologize? You know the feeling. When someone completely avoids taking ownership of what they did, it just leaves you feeling confused and honestly totally invalidated. You're asking for basic responsibility, and instead, you hit a brick wall.
Just consider this ultimate deflection technique. Well, maybe it's your fault for looking through my phone. Wow. This classic phrase instantly flips the entire issue right back onto you. It's essentially rhetorical judo. Suddenly, you're the one on trial here. You're left second-guessing your own totally valid concerns. And that original issue, yeah, it's completely buried.
To help navigate this, we're unpacking 5 key things today: the accountability gap, the psychology of deflection, the over-explaining trap, the 5 steps to accountability, and finally, the true power of walking away. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the psychology of deflection and why certain personalities evade blame.
To stop taking this behavior so personally, we first really need to break down the psychological mechanics at play. We're looking at 3 distinct profiles of people who actively resist accountability: narcissists, avoidants, and those with fragile egos. Rather than just being a simple character flaw, deflection is actually a highly developed defense mechanism that these specific types use to protect their own internal fears.
Let's look at that first profile, the narcissist. This is someone who builds their reality on a complete fabrication just to protect their self-image. Accountability brings up facts and truth, which, frankly, are basically kryptonite to this personality type. To apologize, you need empathy, right? You need to be able to step into someone else's shoes. Expecting a narcissist to empathize and apologize is literally like asking someone who only knows basic algebra to suddenly solve complex Big Bang Theory-level math. They simply do not have the internal capacity for it.
Next up is the avoidant. This is someone who aggressively resists self-reflection. Why? Because admitting fault would confirm their absolute deepest core wound, that lingering belief that they are somehow defective or unlovable. Because true accountability triggers this painfully low self-esteem, an avoidant is rarely going to give you a real, genuine apology. Instead, they'll usually just do the slow fade away from the relationship, or they'll offer a super surface-level non-apology. You know the one, "I'm sorry you're hurt," which of course completely bypasses their actual role in the whole dynamic.
Our third profile is the fragile ego. For this mindset, identity is deeply, almost dangerously tied to competence. For the fragile ego, behavior is blended right in with identity. This means if they do something wrong, they feel like they are fundamentally wrong as a human being. Any internal discomfort immediately triggers defense mode instead of growth mode. They view any critical feedback as a total loss of status. Think of it kind of like a distorted translation. You calmly say, "Hey, when you cancel last minute, it makes me feel unimportant." But their fragile ego, it hears, "You are entirely incompetent." It is honestly like navigating an invisible laser grid. A totally calm request for basic accountability is violently misinterpreted as a direct attack on their core identity.
Moving on to Section 2, the over-explaining trap and how we accidentally reward bad behavior.
The crucial point here is understanding the deflection loop. When they deflect, what do you naturally do? You talk longer, you give more examples, you desperately break down your feelings, and you plead for them to understand. Basically, you're delivering a full-blown mental PowerPoint presentation hoping it finally clicks. But what do? They deflect more, minimize your feelings, hyper-focus on your tone of voice, and completely shut down. When you fall into this trap of over-explaining, you just exhaust your own emotional energy, while they successfully avoid any self-reflection by making the argument entirely about your delivery instead of their actions.
I want you to please burn this quote into your memory. Comfort kills accountability. Really think about it. If someone continually lies, disrespects your boundaries, or forgets commitments, but they still get to keep normal access to you, there is absolutely zero psychological incentive for them to change. Human behavior responds to outcomes. If their bad behavior still results in a perfectly comfortable relationship for them, why on earth would they ever do the hard work of self-reflection?
This brings us to Section 3, the 5 steps to accountability. We need a concrete framework to shift this dynamic entirely. So instead of arguing for the 50th time, we're going to utilize a specific 5-step framework: calmness,
patterns, boundaries, refusing deflection, and the willingness to walk away. Now, this framework isn't about winning a debate. It's about delivering your standards calmly, consistently, and with real boundaries attached. Let's break these down one by one.
Step 1 is calmness. Calmness removes distraction. By taking away your emotional volatility, the yelling, the sarcasm, you prevent them from using your dramatic delivery as a convenient excuse to just dismiss your core message. A calm, measured statement like, "When this keeps happening, it damages trust," is vastly more powerful than a 10-minute emotional monologue.
Step 2, focus on patterns, not isolated moments. Look, anyone can argue away a single mistake. They can easily just say, "Oh, I forgot this one time, cut me some slack." But pointing out a repeated pattern, that forces consistency right into the spotlight. It makes it substantially harder for them to deflect because you're pointing to a verifiable history of behavior, not just a one-off event.
Now, step 3 requires a really crucial distinction. You must attach a boundary, not a threat. A threat, like saying, "If you do this again, I'm done," is reactive. It's designed to scare. A boundary, on the other hand, sounds more like, "If this continues, I'll need to step back to protect my peace." That is firm, it's self-aware, and it's designed to protect your standards. A true boundary carries real weight.
For step 4, you must absolutely refuse deflection. Your ultimate tool here is a very simple phrase. We can talk about that later, but right now we're discussing this. When they inevitably try to change the subject to your tone, your mood, or maybe something you did 3 years ago, do not take the bait. This phrase keeps the conversation fiercely anchored to the actual issue at hand.
And finally, section 4, the power of walking away. This is the final step where your boundaries are truly tested.
Let this sink in for a second. Accountability without consequences is just conversation. Step 5 requires emotional detachment from the outcome. The true power to hold someone accountable doesn't come from forcing them to change. It comes from them realizing that your standards are completely non-negotiable and that you are genuinely willing to be okay without them if those standards aren't met. Applying these 5 steps acts as a rapid filter. It's essentially a maturity test. Emotionally mature partners might feel a little uncomfortable at first, sure, but they will admit fault and adjust their behavior. Emotionally immature partners, however, they'll experience your boundaries as humiliation. They'll respond with aggression or by totally withdrawing. The response itself gives you all the information you need about their actual capacity for growth.
Remember, accountability isn't manipulation, it's alignment. You're not forcing someone to change who they are. You're simply presenting crystal clear clarity, aligning their behavior with your expectations, and then observing what they choose to do with that information. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to help you find clarity in your own relationships. Ask yourself, do they value the relationship or do they just value the lack of consequences? Because an emotionally mature partner will step up and adjust to your boundaries, while the wrong one will simply eliminate themselves. Keep those standards high, and I'll catch you next time.